This is a remote monitoring tracing in a patient with a subcutaneous ICD for ischemic cardiomyopathy and who presented with multiple episodes of arrhythmia. You can see here that this is the first episodes. You have the date and the hour of the episodes. This episode was treated with an impedance and a shock delivered with an impedance of 53 ohms. You can see here the main parameters, two zones, one conditional zone from 200 to 230. It means that there's going to be discrimination of the origin of the arrhythmia from 200 to 230, and also that the sensing profile will differ for the tachycardia from 200 and 230 and for the tachycardia of more than 230. The post-shock pacing has been programmed on. The sensing configuration is the primary vector, and the final shock polarity is standard, because during the induction the first shock was efficient, and during the induction the polarity of the shock has been programmed to standard. Now if you look at the tracing, you can see that the patient is in atrial fibrillation with some PVCs. You can see that most of the markers are labeled S. There are a few dot markers corresponding to the PVC because there is a suspicion of oversensing. Then on the tracing you can see the onset of a very fast polymorphic tachycardia. Initially the markers are S, but then you find one marker T. Remember that for labeling a cycle you need to analyze the average values of the 4 previous intervals. Then after a few numbers of T markers you can see the marker C corresponding to the onset of charging. So this is the charge. This marker E will be on a remote monitoring tracing, but not on a PDF tracing coming from the programmer, correspond to the end of the charge. The C is top of charge, end of the charge, and then the shock is delivered. So the shock has been efficient with return to the initial rhythm with the marker S and some dot markers, and after 24 cycle classified S, you can see this marker corresponding to the end of the episode. Now if we try to analyze in detail the phase preceding the charge, I have added some markers to explain the different counters. During an episode of ventricular fibrillation, like in this example, there is always a delay before the occurrence of the first T marker, and this for two reasons. The first one is that the device calculates the heart rate as the average of the last 4 intervals. So you need at least 4 correctly sensed short intervals before the first marker T. The second reason explaining why there is undersensing at the onset of the tachycardia and then improvement in the quality of the sensing is that the sensing profile will differ if the cycles are classified S or T. At the onset of the tachycardia you have cycle classified S, and the sensing profile are not very sensitive, and then the sensing profile will change and will become much more sensitive, explaining the improvement in the quality of the sensing. The device uses an initial non-programmable 18 of 44 duration criteria prior to onset of capacitor charging. It means that the device will recognize an arrhythmia when 18 of 24 consecutive sense events exceed the program detection zone limit. We will see in other tracing that this counter is automatically adjusted to compensate for double counting and or noise detection. This counter is seeded with a value of 4 upon initial transition to tachy mode to compensate for the 4 RR average. It means that when you see the first T marker, the counter is already at 5. So you can see this 18 of 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So here you have 18 cycles of 24 that are considered as fast. Then there is a criterion of persistence, and we will see how it works exactly in the next tracings. Before the onset of the charge, you need also to fulfill a second criterion, which is the charge confirmation algorithm. The device will count the number of T, and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And the device needs to count at least 16 out of 24 cycles classified T, and then it will analyze the two last cycles, the two last intervals. If these two last intervals, and if you have a minimum of 16 cycles classified T, then the criterion of the charge confirmation is fulfilled. Here in this example, both criteria are fulfilled, so the probabilistic counter, 18 out of 24, and the charge confirmation. So the device needs an additional bit, which is the processing bit, and then it will start the charge of the capacitors. So to summarize, you can see that on this bit, the criterion 18 out of 24 is fulfilled, but the device do not have yet 16 cycles classified T. This is the case here. You need an additional processing bit and then start the charge of the capacitors.